Why do you think we need this kind of law? We have a strong transatlantic friendship, which have gone through a lot of different periods, and we will continue this friendship. This friendship is not threatened. We also have the strategic interest of having a good relationship with Russia, good relations with Russia. Even in the most difficult times, I've always said that Russia-NATO Council continues to operate, that the European Union always continues in contact with Russia. It's important to continue the dialogue. Our civil societies need to stay in touch, and the Russia-Germany relations on different levels can stand the test of disagreements, because if we want to solve problems, we need to continue to talk and have this dialogue. And there are certain things where we're united. So, yes, of course, we can discuss other subjects too where we disagree. So, when we talk a lot about each other, we also need to find ways to talk to each other. And that's one of the most important elements of our cooperation. So I think that's just like an important time for us to meet now.
Now, if you allow me, I'll start with the first bit. I don't think there's any need to link the development of our relations with our bilateral relations with third countries. As I said, Germany is one of the key trade and economic partners with Russia. We had about $80 billion of trade turnover a couple of years ago, and it started to grow. Right now it's about 50. Hundreds of thousands of jobs depend on our cooperation, both here in Russia and in Germany. Now we started to buy German goods in greater volume. This is how we support German jobs. And what about cooperation? What about joint ventures? It's thousands of joint ventures. That's a strong contribution to improving the lives on both sides of the border. And even in the most challenging times, we never lost our contacts. Life is moving forward. We're seeing new opportunities. And you cannot resolve old problems without dialogue. That's obvious. This is why Russian-German ties have their own relationship, have their own meaning. As for the law that you draft law that is being debated at the State Duma, the Russian Parliament, I agree with you. We need to come up with a balanced response. But MPs in Russia and MPs in your country are often driven by emotions. As for the law itself, the EU does have a similar law, and Brussels made a statement recently, and they want to intensify this legislation to protect their interests from the so-called trans-border sanctions from the US. So I don't think it will be strange that Russia passes a similar law, but I agree with you, it must be a balanced one. It shouldn't deliver any blow to our own economy and to our partners who've been operating conscientiously here in Russia, and I'm sure that that's the way it will be. And as you might have heard, the Parliament delayed the passing of the bill, and it will consult the government, and the government has just been shaped.
Thank you very much. My name is Ilya Petrenko, RT. Hello. My question is for both leaders. Traditionally, you discussed the situation in Ukraine, and in this current state, Is it necessary to go back to the Normandy 4 communication at the top level as soon as possible? Have you discussed today a possible date for the next meeting of the 4 leaders when it could happen? And also about the situation in Ukraine. Ms. Merkel, there is a very dangerous precedent in this country, a violation of freedom of speech. Head of the RIA Novosti Ukraine news agency was arrested, and I would like to communicate, speaking for all Russian journalists, maybe you could use your influence over the Kiev authorities and make sure that he's released and make sure that they don't do that again. I'm talking about Kirill Vyshinsky, and Mr. Putin, maybe you can also address the authorities in Kiev.
Now, first, about the Normandy 4 format. As I said, it's an important tool to resolve the situation in the southeast of Ukraine. Russia stands ready to continue working this format. We believe it's very important, and as of today, there's no alternative to it. We didn't discuss a particular date where we talked about such a possibility. A top-level summit needs to be prepared, and our colleagues are working on it. We have advisors, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs are working on it. As for the detainment of journalists, I agree with you. He's been charged with treason for the fact that he just performed his duties, his professional duties. It's absurd. I haven't seen anything like that for a long time. That's extraordinary. Now, we discussed this, and we touched upon other issues that we've been facing in Ukraine, but I don't want to go deeper into it.
Of course, the Normandy 4 format at the top level could meet, but it has to be prepared very well so that there are results. That's why our foreign ministries already began to work on that. The newly appointed foreign minister of Germany and the Russian foreign minister, they're already working on that. And they will also talk about the UN mission and their mandate in Ukraine so that this issue could be discussed at the Security Council level. That would be something that the leaders of the countries would also discuss. But it has to be, we have to have something to talk about, and we need progress. We need an action plan. So the situation that we have right now is not satisfactory. As far as your concerns about the journalist, of course, I will discuss this with the Ukrainian president when I meet with him, and I will talk about this case. The Russian journalists are arrested here and they can't do their job, and that is also a concern for us. AP. Germany accepted over 700,000 Syrian refugees, and most of them probably want to go back to Syria. Do you have any kind of signal from your Russian partners that Russia will use its influence over Syria to make sure that the political process would be resumed? And Mr. President, one more question about Sergei Skripal, who has been discharged from the hospital today. Can you talk what you think about it? And what do you think about the investigation, which seems difficult from the diplomatic standpoint? It's like I said, we have discussed Syria and the situation in Syria, and we support the UN initiative to start the constitutional process. And there were signals yesterday from the Astana group and from Sochi. that the representative would be appointed. We need a political process. We need to start a political process, and we want to help that process. I expressed our concern over the order number 10 in Syria. If people do not claim their property within a certain time frame, they will lose it. And that's bad news for people who want to go back to Syria at some point. And we will talk more about that in more detail. And we'll ask Russia to use its influence over the Syrian authorities and to ask Assad not to do that, because that would be a very serious barrier for refugees if they want to go back.